Welcome back, you filthy exiles, and I gotta say, it is nice to do a build update for the first time in 7 months at but let's just call it a league start because that's how this felt. So far, so good with Legacy of Phrecia. I gotta say, this is probably one of the best events they've ever had, and I am actually really enjoying playing the Ancestral Commander. Now, what are we playing? What are we doing? Well, you would have seen in the B-roll. This is my day one update, I guess, or my first update for this build. This is bringing back the old Bone Zone setup, but we're going to be doing endurance charge stacking eventually. Now, Arn's Anguishes are like 10C on the market right now, but right now where the build's currently at, I need a lot of like mitigation and defense. Just a couple of things to run through. So obviously we're playing Bone Zone of complex trauma. Now, the idea behind this is you don't need to stack up more than 8 charges, right? Or more than 8 stacks of trauma. That's the cap. It can go up to 9, I believe, as well. But essentially, your damage goes up exponentially, as you get up to that 8 or 9 stacks. Actually 10 trauma stacks here, it caps out. But basically the idea here is you take a lot more damage for each trauma stack because you're stacking a lot less trauma. So you just have to manage how many stacks you can actually sustain until a point where you take too much damage. Now, so far to date, this is pretty, like, my build's sufficiently tanky to handle it. We're basically looking at, 31k armor just chilling as we're standing in one spot. And then that's with a bit of buffing up. And obviously, we also go up in armor as we stand still. We've got damage reduction when we stand still. Our Chaos Res is almost totally fixed, and the reason why is we're going to be switching to a Zebiqua Glorious Vanity in the future, and that's going to be in the next update. We have like 41% attack block and 17% spell block because we do sort of go into the stave nodes early on, and we get all the extra juicy block nodes that come with that, and the crit as well. Now, this isn't a precise technique setup, which is what you would do if you played like an axe variant or something like that. This is actually using staves, and so we're actually stacking a ton of crit on this build because we can. So we're actually at like 35% crit, but in my tree, I'm actually sitting at an effective crit pool of like 61.35%, which will continue to scale. Now we're only doing about 200k DPS so far, but we're only up to like T45 mapping. I haven't been playing for probably as much as I usually would because I've been a little busy with work and stuff like that. We have 54k effective hit pool, and we are basically just running down Delve and killing everything. Now, once we get to 130 with Crystal Kings, we should be geared up enough to take down Crystal Kings easily. Also, my DPS is only at 200k because this is on a 4-link setup right now, and I've still got life tap in the build because I need to be able to craft on the the reduction to mana cost onto my rings. So essentially, this is as scuffed as it's going to get, and even my weapon is total craptastic garbage. So I've got no attack speed on my stave. I've got nothing on my stave. It's garbage. It's total. It's bad, right? It's bad. This is as bad as this build's going to get in the end game, and we're just cheesing through the end game. We are running a 4th Vaal, so it means that our armor applies to chaos damage taken as well. And obviously, we've got almost capped chaos res. And once we get Divine Flesh onto the build, essentially, that's when we can start thinking about switching to Arn's Anguish, because essentially damage reduction for Elemental starts to go against our Chaos pool. And that is going to make us incredibly tanky. But until we get that, we can't switch to Arn's Anguish, unfortunately. Now, Amulet, I'm delving because I'm going to use an All's Uprising to fit Pride in. Right now, we really don't have any major auras except Determination, and we're just using a lot of precision throttling, so we're taking that from our life pool, so we're using Arrogance to buff that up a little bit, and it really doesn't affect us too much. And then we're using Vitality just to keep myself alive, because I do, have quite a bit of own source damage coming in. But that's basically it. Like, some of the things that are really powerful so far on the commander, so I've got all 4 ascendancies. As you've seen, my Uber Lab was just super friggin' easy. Leveling with this was just a breeze because it's so tanky, but we are running Ancestral Defiance in this setup, so we do basically have Defiance of Destiny set up in this configuration. Born Under Fire is also in this, and we are overcapping our fire res, so we have a auto trigger flask here, so we have 81% so far, and we'll continue to throttle that. I'm not sure if I want to take these nodes here, potentially, or this node here, or if we come down and we maybe go for these nodes to get +3 or something like that, because we are going to be using a a Glorious Vanity jewel, this is going to corrupt these, so we're going to lose the +3 here. And then basically our jewels I'm still equipping in, but basically, yeah, we've got more Chaos Res coming in here. And the other jewel, which there's one ticking around somewhere in here, there it is. Basically, we've got Corrupted Blood Immunity, which is why we could fight the Vaal boss in Delve. I always call him Anatoly for some reason. That's not his name, but let's just call him Anatoly. So that's why I can just face tank Anatoly in Delve and have fun with that. So yeah, basically so far it's super tanky. We're just running Delve. We're smashing through maps. It's just one of the easiest builds I think I've played in a very long time, and Bone Zone is still incredibly powerful. Now, Complex Trauma, how much did that cost me? Literally 1C. It costs nothing because no one's really playing it. They're probably going to be playing like Tectonic Slammer Catter and stuff like that. Literally, my investment so far has been into my Unnatural Instinct, which was dirt cheap. Or sorry, my Nature's Patience, which was dirt cheap. My Crimson Jewel, which was 5C for Corrupted Blood Immunity. And that's basically been it. I think I bought my 4th Vaal for like less than 2 or 3C. And that's all, and just some minor gear for like maybe 5 or 10C as I've been delving and or making a little bit of currency. So there's like no investment in this build. It's about as SSF as it's going to get. Anyway, let's get into the configurations. We'll talk about the POB and then we'll talk through the gearing and everything else up to date. And all this will be in the description below. And yeah, and I'll also put the final POB that I'm working off of as well, which is from my previous video. So I'll put a link to that in the description as well. But I thought this would be pretty fun to just do a day one update. And yeah. Okay, so first POB we have here, this is my day one scuffed update POB. So obviously the final POB has cluster jewels and everything. We have to sort of compensate for that a little bit. And by the way, this is only level 82. And it's artificial by 2 levels because we have to fit in an Ancestral Commander to be able to get the Ascendancy. Pardon me, my nose always goes off when I record. To get the Ancestral Commander node in the actual tree because there's no like Ascendancy for it, right? We don't even have Ascendancy art. So basically, configuration page. We have Soul of the Brine King, Soul of Tukahama. We have Stationary for 5 seconds. This synergizes with 2 things. Number 1 being the armor build up on the armor mastery for Inexorable, and also Nature's Patience as well. Power charges, frenzy charges, and endurance charges. So we have Blood Rage up, which is how we get frenzy charges. We have the Whirling Barrier node, which is how we get power charges into the build, because we have to take damage to get them. And then endurance charges, we obviously have Inexorable and also Smashing Strikes, and we also run the on the skill in Complex endurance charge on melee stun. You need this setup when you get Complex Trauma, and the way that I leveled this up is I basically did like Ground Slam until I could get Boneshatter, and then you, instead of running multi-strikes, you run faster attacks. And then once you get Complex Trauma, which was only 1C, I got that really early on in the campaign, to be honest with you. So it is league startable, perfectly league startable. Then basically you just do Life Tap, Endurance Charge, Multi-Strike, and you're laughing. And that's basically all there is to it. And then you just run Vitality to regenerate. Now, beyond that, we have 40 Rage. Reason why we have 40 Rage is we take this point up here, so Battle Trance, and we have the 2 gain Rage nodes as well. So basically, we get a lot of Rage. We cap Rage pretty much all the time, so we have 40 Rage, which is really useful. There's no other settings in here that we use. We don't use any War Cries or anything like that. We do have Banner Plant. Obviously, this gives us a lot of damage. So we have War Banner in the build, and we just like put 1,000, Valor, because that just triggers it up. Or just shows the stat of what it applies. Now, trauma stacks. I've got 6. I know we have 10. If we hit 10, our DPS goes up to like 280k. But in reality, you're probably going to sit on 6 because my attack speed just isn't there yet to get up further. It requires a lot more attack speed with this setup to do it. And some people will be like, why do you use like multi-strike? Because you don't want to attack too fast, because you want to be able to sustain the charges at 8 to 10. You don't want to go over because otherwise it resets your damage pool down below like 1 stack. So multi-strike gets around that and fixes that problem. Now, there's no other stat changes here. If enemies were crushed or intimidated, we could probably fit Intimidate in the build because that's one of the mastery points in here if you have Rage. Otherwise, it's Guardian, Pinnacle, Boss damage. So really, there's like nothing to this right now. We're not like distorting. The only distortion would be on bosses. You're probably not going to have Frenzy charges, which will drop you down. You'll have Power charges and Endurance charges though. But that's it for the configuration. So let's talk about the gear. Okay, so gear on this, as I said, is pretty bad. So you don't have to try too hard to get this to work. So, helm. Basically, just go onto the market, increase life regeneration rate, lightning resistance, chaos resistance. I think this one was like, whoa, this was like super cheap. Yeah, it's like, what's that? There's nothing with that at the moment, but basically like 3 to 4 chaos, right? Amulet is just whatever, dropped out, crit multi, it was cool. So right now I'm just running with Scuffed. Rings I had to buy and basically just want to cap out your resistances. I use amethyst rings at this stage. Oh, steel rings are ideal, but you need to get to level 80 to be able to use them from memory, and also getting the right rolls is going to take a bit of effort, but right now amethyst rings are fine because it achieves our defensive stats. And we have rarity fine on this too, but I really don't care about that stat. We also have life regeneration on both too. And if you could get recoup or something like that, that'd be preferable. Now, I have a fourth Vaal. It's a bad fourth Vaal. It's only got a 17% Chaos Res roll, but it has a high armor roll, right? So this right now will do the job until we find something a bit better. Our weapon is just crap. It's just not good, but it is a total fizz damage roll of 343. So right now, this is basically like, it's not good. So once we switch this out, you'll see a huge amount of damage increase. We may end up having to craft it. One of the biggest issues with the weapon is just like having enough of these to basically get. So you need like on a 5 link, you need 4 blue, 4 red and 1 green. And as you can see, it does not like rolling that. So that's going to take a little bit of time to get that. And we're going to have to try and off color and stuff like that. The reason why is we don't even have Impale in the build. Once we have Impale in the build, our DPS will double basically. So we're running on a pretty bad 4 link. Now gloves, just same thing. I got a bit of accuracy. Accuracy is really important on this build, and we had to get around that a few ways. And we are going to be relying on precision later on, so we're going to be using Empower and Enhance on that to basically throttle that up. But gloves, all resistances and anything else you can get on it. As you can see, I'm missing a lot of stats because exalts are expensive and I need more currency. Belt, literally chaos res, life per second, any other stats you can get, max life, anything like that, do that. And boots, 30% movement, chaos res, other resistances, max life, anything else, any other stats you can get. Now, I am just running a Divine Flask, a Quicksilver Flask, which I switch out for a Quartz Flask when I'm in Delve, a Diamond Flask, I've got an Auto Trigger Ruby Flask, and I've got an Auto Trigger Basalt Flask, and the mods are Reduced Curse Effect and Reduced Stun, or Avoid being stunned by a percentage, as well as gain 2 charges when you hit on either, which is pretty damn useful because it means as I'm getting hit, because I'm so tanky, it'll auto trigger. So then I'll continue to max cap my my fire res, which will then synergize with my ascendancy, which is Born Under Fire, which is nearby enemies convert 50% of physical damage to fire. So basically, the higher your overall cap of fire res is, up to 90%, the less damage you're going to take. And then we're going to use Zabiqua with Glorious Vanity to get around that and run Divine Flesh, which means we actually mitigate our fire damage, or fizz damage converted to fire is changed to fire damage before it hits your character, which is really useful, which is what makes this really powerful. So you're not double dipping the conversion technically at the same time, which doesn't work, which means that allows for your armor to apply to chaos damage, and because 50% of your chaos damage is going to be converted into elemental damage because of Zabiqua and Glorious Vanity with Divine Flesh, that basically means that you're taking very, very little physical damage, which theoretically means this build should be able to delve to 1000 pretty damn easily overall if it works like that. Plus, we obviously have the recoup as well, or gain 15% of missing unreserved life before being hit by an enemy, so that's also a big advantage as well. Arguably, we could put Defiance of Destiny into the amulet setup later on, and it would just be really, really immortal. Anyway, that's it for setup for gear right now, so let's talk about the gem setups. Okay, so for gem setups, in the helm running Leap Slam, Life Tap, Support, and Decoy Totem. You don't need Decoy Totem, but it's just cool to have. Ideally, I want to put Fortify into this, but right now I'm just lazy and don't want to do the last socket. So in the weapon, I've got Mark on Hit, Assassin's Mark, and Life Tap. If you're having issues surviving, Warlord's Mark works well as well, and that gives you Rage 2, which is pretty useful early on. I've also got Vitality in there as well. In my chest, I've just got Automation, Molten Shell, and Blood Rage, so I don't like clicking buttons, so this avoids having to do that. In my glove setup, this is where I've got my Boneshatter of Complex Trauma, Multi-Strike Support, Gain Endurance Charges on Stun, and Life Tap as well. We've just got Life Tap because the amount of mana is simply not sustainable yet. We need a lot more leech on the build and mana reduction. And then in the boots, we're running Determination, War Banner, Precision, and Arrogance. Make sure that that's not linked, otherwise it'll try and do your Determination on Arrogance, and that won't work. So if you're having issues with that, it's because I'm running a two-link, not a four-link setup in my boots, and that gets around that whole issue. But that's it for gem setups. Pretty easy stuff. Okay, so for our tree setup, we're a bit inefficient currently. So we do run through these fizz damage points, which is how I leveled extra attack speed into versatility and Heart of the Warrior. We come up and we grab the expertise point up here for dex, and then we basically come down and we want battle trance, which gives us rage generation, and also the crit nodes here with the crit multi-node against unique enemies. Then we come up, we want to grab all of these stave nodes because they're really good. We grab Devotion with skill costs instead is cost 15% of mana cost as life. And then basically we get our first extra endurance charge. We got Dual Socket here up into Faith and Steel. Eventually we will also get Divine Shield, so we make the most of the ES pool that we currently have over here as well. And then basically we come down, Barbarism, we get Stamina. We come down, we get Inexorable. We also want the armor per second node while we're stationary. We come down a little more, we get Bloodless. We also want Tribal Fury with the extra strike because that's just really good for clear. And then we want to get Bastion Breaker with the 10% increased maximum physical damage as well. Then we come up, we need Proficiency, and Hard Knocks. We want Eagle Eye as well because we need to cap out our accuracy so that we're actually doing a lot more damage. Bad accuracy means you're not going to be doing as much damage, by the way. We have 1 point of dex over here because we need it to basically have enough dex to run the build. But we also will take these prismatic skin nodes here. Then we come across and we go all the way to Art of the Gladiator. Then we come down, we want Golem's Blood. We also want Cloth and Chain and the extra per endurance charge, 8% increased armor, which is pretty damn bloody good. And then we get our Vigor node here and another dual socket node here. Now, this isn't endgame in any way, shape, or form. This tree is going to drastically change, but this is just like a really good tree to play. You could play any Boneshatter build, to be honest with you. You could get rid of the stave nodes and just run axes if you want to run axes, and this is still going to do a good amount of damage, and it's going to make you incredibly defensive and allows you to play crit. Now, if you weren't going to go crit, you would go back into here all the way over to Precise Technique. But to be honest with you, that's a jug strategy, and that doesn't really work on the Ancestral Commander because you basically don't have, unyielding on this Ascendancy setup. So this is, giving you good amounts of early damage, accuracy, crit, and allowing you to capitalize on all the stuff here. Now, first of all, I took Toughened Skin, then I took Ancestral Endurance, then I took Ancestral Defiance, and the fourth Ascendancy I took was Born Under Fire. And that's basically it for my day one update. Overall, I'm having a lot of fun with this build. Like, I understand it's not as fast as other builds, and people will be like, it's not zoomy enough. It's not built to zoom. It's built to survive Delve, and Delve builds are not as fast as zoom builds because we face tank stuff. But what you can do is literally face tank shit, and that's a lot of fun. And to be honest with you, I really want this Ascendancy to stay in the game because there's so many builds that I can get working with this that are just going to be ridiculously tanky. And also, if you want to know what the skins are, these are the skins on the build. So, cosmetics. So, it's the Delve Core Azurite skin, Divine Paladin, Tyranny's End Spear with Ruby Axolotl back attachment, Delve Core weapon effect. We've got the Totem Caller Rare Finisher, which is from the Path of Exile 2 supporter packs, Delve Core Azurite gloves, Divine Paladin boots. Corpse Devourer Portal was from ExileCon. This is the Lithomancer portrait frame and the bear, which is my favorite thing about Path of Exile. The Delve bear is amazing. Anyway, that's it for the build. And yeah, we'll just keep doing updates every couple of days or so, and we'll push this one. I'd say probably by the end of the week, we'll be relatively highly geared, and we should be like clearing T16s like a monster. and down at like 500 or 600 delve, I'd say I'll be killing Crystal Kings on stream later tonight anyway. Anyway, don't forget to like and sub, and follow the channel, the Twitch, the X, or the Twitter, whatever it's called now. And until next time, I will see you guys later on.